Welcome to Monkeys Unfiltered, the podcast where chaos meets conversation, and the unexpected is always on the menu. Join hosts Leanne, Jason, and Hayden as they swing through life's absurd, hilarious, and thought-provoking moments. No topic is too wild, no opinion is too untamed. Get ready for unfiltered banter, laughs, and a barrel of fun. This is Monkeys Unfiltered.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Monkeys Unfiltered podcast. I'm joined as always by my brother and my mother, Jason, Leanne. How y'all doing today?
Hello, Hayden.
Eh?
What is eh?
Well, if you'll recall, I was not feeling well last week, but I am feeling better this week. But I'm still not 100%, so I'd go with eh.
It's fair enough.
Understood. Understood.
Fair enough. But
I have a sinus headache. Does that count?
I mean, does that make you feel eh?
It makes me feel beyond eh. I mean, it is that time in Florida where everything is covered in that greenish yellow
Pollen?
film.
Yeah, and then it rains and gets all sticky everywhere.
It's gross.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
so I have a sinus headache, and I'm eh.
You just gotta one-up me, don't you?
Well, I'm in charge today, and I'm going to force y'all to learn about one of my favorite things.
Hold on.
Because
Let me put on my seatbelt. If you're in charge.
Wait, I already know all about Cheyenne.
I said one of my favorite things.
Oh, okay. Nice save, buddy. Nice save.
So, recently, it has begun the Formula One season. I don't know if y'all know what Formula One is, but it's a racing series that takes place pretty much all across the world.
A lot
and
of dudes with weird names and low to the ground cars.
Pretty much. But they, I mean, it's so much different than NASCAR, which I know a lot of people in the United States love. But like the technological advancements that these cars do, like these cars are so fast and aerodynamically sound that they have had to slow them down over the years for safety. Like that's
Right, so there was a friend of mine last night. We were in a small group together, and I got to telling him what we were going to record today. And he made mention that Formula One went from like V12 to V10 to V8 or something like that, and then all the way down to V6. He said when the change from V8 to V6 happened, there was a distinct difference in how the cars sounded, so there was a lot less excitement.
Yeah, so I think it was the V10s that they used to use right before the V6s that they're on now, I believe. And it literally just sounded like this high-pitched whine that everybody like associated with racing. And I mean, like they still have that, but the cars are hybrids now, so they have an electrical system that produces horsepower, and the gasoline engine is only limited to a certain amount of horsepower it can produce.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Given where I live and some of my past employment opportunities, does Formula One race at Rolex? No, that's just IMSA cars, right? No Formula One?
Formula One is under the FIA, which I'm going to butcher it. It's the Federation Internationale d'Automobile. It's French. It's a French governing body. They cover pretty much any series from Europe, so the Formula, all the way from Formula E to Formula 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, that was my next question. They have classifications, right?
You're right. The World Endurance Championship, there's a drifting one that like they have probably 30, 40 series that they govern for. But Formula 1 is like the pinnacle of their like that's the highest license level you can get.
Like
That's the
equating, since I'm from Alabama, it equates to Division I football, right?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Formula 1 is like that's the global race series, right?
It takes place all across the world. So as far as here in the States, they race in Miami around the Hard Rock Stadium, which it's just in a glorified parking lot. They race at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. And then they just last year added a race in Vegas down the strip.
I was there, not for the race. I was there like the week before when they were setting it up. It was crazy.
Yeah, I remember I tried to get you to take a picture of the paddock for me.
There was so much madness. I mean, Vegas is mad enough on its own, but then you add all that in there, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Do they change the sphere to the giant eyeball so the drivers get like scared as they're going through?
Let me tell you about that sphere. I'll tell you about that sphere, not to derail the episode, but when we were landing in Vegas, they have that thing. It looks like a big yellow emoji, and it'll look at your plane and just watch you all the way till you land. Oh! And then when you land, its eyes gets really big, and you can tell it's like all happy you're here, and then it goes on and does other crazy stuff.
Yeah, I've seen like a YouTube short or something with that on it.
Yeah,
I think it's crazy.
That thing is indeed.
But back
crazy.
to racing.
So, a little history of Formula One, because you can't just jump into something without knowing what it's all about, where it came from.
Have you met me?
It actually started in the 20s and 30s as the European Motor Racing Championships. So it wasn't actually Formula One until just after World War II in 1950. I think they finalized it in 1947, it says. But the first official world championship was instituted in 1950. So basically, X number of drivers come in, you race, you score points. Based on the end of the season, there's a champion. And then later on, they added a constructors champion because they are in teams of two. It used to be more, but now you race individually for points and you race for points for your team as well. So it's a balancing act of like, you want to win the drivers' championship, but you also want your team to win.
So wait, that's kind of like it's kind of like Tour de France, right? You're all one team, but if there's a standout guy, like I remember watching back in the day with my dad the bicycle race Tour de France, and Lance Armstrong rode for the U.S. Postal Service, but there were several other guys who were like equally capable, but they all supported Lance. Like they all wanted to win as a team, but they pumped him up because he had the yellow jersey on. Is that kind of the same principle?
For the most part, I mean, it is a team sport. It's an individual team sport, which makes no sense. But as a driver, your number one rival is your teammate, but you also have to work with your teammate. You know what I mean? Because like at the end of the day,
like that too. Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's the person you're compared to because you're both in the same exact machine. So you should be able to perform exactly the same.
So let me ask another question. Don and I recently went to see that movie, Ferrari. Is that Formula One racing? Pretty dope.
I haven't seen the movie. I think that was just Ferrari's introduction into motorsport racing.
Yeah, I think because it's actually the story about Enzo Ferrari.
Right.
Is that the one with Adam Driver?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I wanted to see it, and then you went without me. But we're not going to talk about that.
I told you I would. I told you I would go again with you.
I know. So, like I stated, it's governed by the FIA. FIA is very similar into the way that like IMSA and NASCAR are. So, like NASCAR governs. Is it still the Sprint? I don't know what it is now, but like the Sprint Cup, the Xfinity Series, like in that
Xfinity,
way.
right.
Yeah, that Formula One would be the Sprint Cup or whatever it is now, because I don't watch NASCAR. And then F2 would be like the Xfinity series. Like, it goes up in levels. But 10 teams compete under a set of regulations that all cars must fall under. So every car can be different in its own little unique way, but generally the cars look and operate the exact same way as each other. So there's not like a distinct advantage from another team.
So I actually appreciate that, like, because I play video games a lot, and the issue with the game that I play now is, while there is a PvP side of things, it gets really tricky because different builds and different abilities and things like that dominate like your ability to win. Mm-hmm. Whereas I'm all about just straight gunplay.
Yeah.
So like something like Halo was better for me than Destiny, what I play now. And yeah, again, you find like just because somebody has some special something, they have a leg up. Whereas I'd rather just shoot you to death. So operating with the same machinery just proves that literally you're the better driver when you win.
Yeah. I mean, it's not all like, okay, you get this car, this is what you're racing. Like, it is specifications. All right, your wheelbase has to be this. You can only have this much horsepower in your engine. Certain things have to connect to certain points on the car, but there is innovation and uniqueness to each car. So, like, there's a I don't know his official title, but he's an aerodynamic genius for Red Bull Racing named Adrian Newey. I mean, like, his cars look vastly different than the other cars on the track, but they're still the same style of car. Like, if you put two Formula One cars together, you'd be like, okay, those are Formula One cars. But if you start looking at the details of it, you can see like, okay, this car is bulkier here and slimmer here to try to get the air around the car and out of the way faster.
Yeah, all that like weight distribution and where you put stuff matters.
Yeah, and like you can move the driver's seat forward and backwards in the car, and it does matter at the end of the day. So the 10 teams, each team consists of 2 cars and 2 drivers. So each driver has their own car. And the entire season, at least this year, is 24 races across 7 months, I think.
You know, they ought to jazz it up and take the 2 drivers and put them in the same car and just have one be like a rear tail gunner and then turn it into Mario Kart.
Yeah, but then they wouldn't go as fast with all the extra weight and stuff like that.
How fast do they go?
180 to 210 mile an hour, depending on the track.
Okay, so like NASCAR. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
that's really scary. And they're doing like way more turns than NASCAR.
I was about to say, but unlike NASCAR, like NASCAR does road courses, but they're not aerodynamic missiles like these cars are. Like, these cars can take a chicane, which is 2 quick turns in succession, at 120.
I can't imagine.
I mean,
I take a turn at 70 and I get nervous.
The G-forces on that car when they're stopping, because like it's 5 G's worth of force and it goes to their neck and head essentially. So when you brake, you know, you get pushed forward or whatever, you brake real hard. This is all in their neck because they're strapped in real tight, and these dudes' necks are huge because they don't move when they brake. It's insane. But
you know what's funny is, sorry, I just Googled it real quick. It says most people can withstand up to 4 to 6 G's. Fighter pilots can manage up to about 9 for a second or two.
Wow.
So yeah, and then astronauts, they endure 3 G's on liftoff. So like these guys in these cars are experiencing more than astronauts on liftoff.
It's ridiculous.
So that's what and that's what I always find kind of, I don't know if that humorous is the right word, but when you talk about sports, right, and having, clearly I have hinted enough, I spent some time employed at NASCAR. So having been around it and been around the drivers and the track and the training processes and all of that, I always am amazed when people think that car drivers are not real athletes.
Yeah, these dudes work. I mean, like,
your body has to be conditioned. Yeah,
a NASCAR driver can sweat up to 10 gallons during a race.
The inside of the cockpit of a Formula One car can get up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit during a race.
Oh, that's insane.
But I mean, like, it matters too, like how you're built, because these cars are so lightweight and aerodynamic. So I don't know if y'all know who Lewis Hamilton is.
No, is he the guy that got told to suck somebody else's balls?
No.
Oh my god.
So Lewis Hamilton is arguably,
that's what I know about F1.
Yeah. He's arguably the greatest F1 driver there is. And he's super into like fashion and stuff. So you might have heard him there. I wasn't sure. But he did an interview one time that was like, it matters. Like, if I work out in the off season and come back and I'm too big in my shoulders, like, they'll ask me to lose weight up there and try to put it on like in my legs or something, because it throws the balance of the car off when you're driving, or like you can't quite fit in the seat right. Like, it matters the way you're built too. But like I was saying earlier, it's split into the two different championships of the World Drivers' Championships and then the Constructor Championship, which is the team standing. So in the World Driver, there's 20 entries, 2 for every 10 teams. 2 drivers, 10 teams. And then for the Constructors, there's the 10 entries for just the 10 teams. And then as far as point scoring, it's based off of the top 10 in a race. So first place would get 25, 10th place gets 1 point, and then you get an additional point if you record the fastest lap of the race.
Do they do stages like in NASCAR?
No. So the race is full out. There's no braking unless there's like a major accident or weather or something like that. But unlike NASCAR, because NASCAR is a multi-day event because they don't qualify and stuff on the same day. But it's a 3-day weekend essentially. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday is how it's split. Day 1 consists of free practice 1 and free practice 2. Day 2 is free practice 3, qualifying, and day 3 is the race. So sometimes it can be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It just depends. It's usually Friday, Saturday, Sunday, though.
So, okay, I have another question. Can you tell I'm super into this?
Yeah.
So I know when you were younger and growing up, it was NASCAR, because you were a huge Gordon fan, and we've been to races together, and you used to, come down when I was at NASCAR. In fact, we were at that 500 talking about cars going airborne.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Ryan Newman won and had his crash right at the finish line. What made you make the switch from NASCAR to F1?
My best friend, Josh.
He bullied you?
No, he didn't. He didn't actually. He didn't. So I had never really been into racing. Like, oh, it's cool to watch cars go fast, whatever, right?
That's what I like.
And like, I hadn't watched NASCAR in years because you go in circles. Who cares, right? Like,
that's how I feel about it.
But something...
It's dangerous for me to say in Alabama, too.
Right. But something about Formula One just grabbed me and wouldn't let me go. Just watching these cars hit a 70-degree like turn at 95 miles an hour and then take off and be at 180 in 3 seconds is mind-boggling.
Hey, did you see the video I sent you about the fast drone that follows the cars?
Yeah.
I thought that was really neat.
I saw when they did that. I mean, that drone is insane, being able to keep up with a Formula One car like that.
Yeah. I like haphazardly just look, because I have no idea what's going on here. I don't know anything about any of this. I'm just here because my name is on Monkeys Unfiltered, right? And I'm here for it. But A quick Google, I came across this article. I've not read the article. I just see the title, like a little description here. It says the FIA president is under investigation for allegedly interfering over a race. Do you know anything about that? This was posted 1 hour ago.
I do not, no.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, there you go. Something to look at.
Well, there you go.
Put that in your back pocket for later.
I don't know how he could interfere in a race when one dude wins all the races, but whatever.
Right.
That sounds like interference to me.
No,
can you say Patriots? Wait, that's a different sport.
That just gets back to that guy Adrian Newey I was talking about. You get the greatest aerodynamical engineer, whatever you call them, and you put the fastest driver and you put them together on the same team. It's bound to just be pure dominance.
Yeah.
Right. Well, somebody obviously has a fat wallet to put them all on the same payroll.
Yeah, Red Bull.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
You did say that. Sorry.
So
yeah, Red Bull, the company who sponsored the guy to go up into outer space and bungee jump back to Earth.
Listen, there's 10 teams. There's a bunch of car manufacturers. So Mercedes, McLaren, Alfa Romeo was a part of it, but they were really just a sponsor. Ferrari. Like, there's a ton of car manufacturers, right? Like high-end car manufacturers. And then there's Red Bull, an energy drink company. And of the 10 teams, they own 2 of them.
Yeah, because they do extreme sports.
It's just, it's insane. And
I feel like driving a car at 200 miles an hour is an extreme sport.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the teams...
It's kind of how Red Bull makes you feel. Like
right.
You're driving a car at 200 miles an hour.
Like you have wings.
Right. And I mean, like, some of the teams kind of find it unfair because Red Bull owns 2 teams, but they're very strict and, like, they can't cooperate. They can't trade parts with each other, that kind of stuff. And the junior team, as it's called, is very adamant on having its own identity away from Red Bull, even though they just got named to RB with a giant bull as their logo. So,
wow.
Oh, okay. You said RB, so I thought it was AIRB.
No,
I thought it was Arby's.
Like what are you talking about? Like the arbiter from Halo?
No, I'm thinking about Arby's sandwiches.
Yeah, I thought. Hey, what's your favorite course?
The Silverstone circuit in Britain.
Why is that your favorite?
I don't know. I think from playing... Is it
like aesthetics or...
I think just from playing the F1 game a lot, it's just my favorite course to drive.
So now we're to the root of things. We owe all of this to video games.
That too, yeah.
Don't we owe all things to video games, really?
But no, either that or Austria, which coincidentally is the Red Bull ring because Red Bull owns it.
Nice. Where in Austria is that?
Spielberg.
I'm seeing a trend emerge.
Yeah. Hey, if it helps you, I'm not a Red Bull fan. I'm a fan of McLaren, but everything F1 just is Red Bull. You can't say F1 and not mention Red Bull right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in the 2010s, you couldn't say Red Bull, or you couldn't say F1 and not mention Mercedes.
Kind of like media and Disney.
Pretty much.
Pretty much everything that's made is Disney now.
Yeah. So to break down the weekend structure, you have your practice sessions, which each last 60 minutes. And during these sessions, teams go out, they collect data on how their cars will perform. They'll perform one quick lap to see how they'll do in qualifying, or they'll go for long runs to see how they would fare in the race. And during these sessions, you're allowed to work on any part of the car whenever you want, make changes, that kind of stuff. But as soon as qualifying starts, the teams and the cars enter what's called parc ferme, which I don't know the translation of, but essentially you can't touch it anymore, except for a few things like the tires and stuff like that.
Right.
Like the car is what it is. That's what you race with.
The term parc ferme is a French phrase that translates literally as closed park.
Yeah. So like literally it's closed. You can't work on it anymore.
Literally.
As you can tell, it's a French thing. FIA is a French governing body, but Formula One is not. Formula One is not French owned, so I don't know what you just said, but God bless you.
It's Dexter's Laboratory. Omelette du fromage.
So after practice, we get to the qualifying session, which is then again split into 3 sessions, but instead of being over multiple days, it's back to back to back, and it's basically a knockout stage. And there's Q1, Q2, and Q3. Q1 consists of all 20 drivers. The slowest 5 get eliminated, and then Q2 is the 15, and the next slowest 5 get eliminated, and then Q3 is the remaining 10, and that determines the order in which you start the race in. So one of the big things when it comes to Formula One racing compared to NASCAR is tire management. So in Formula One, it's not just one type of tire you go out and race, and this is why practice is so important. There's 5 different types of tires that you can race on. There's 3 slick compounds and 2 that have tread on them, essentially, that are really meant for like wet weather. But there's soft, medium, and hard. And then there's intermediate tires, which are for like when it's kind of wet. And then there's full wet tires. You're over there giggling, and I'm now realizing.
I'm not saying a word.
And I'm now realizing that the tires are very sexual.
You guys are so juvenile.
But they each serve a different purpose.
That's what she said.
That's incredible.
They each serve a different purpose, where soft tires are the quickest around a track, but they degrade faster, so they might only last you 10 laps, whereas a hard tire might last you 25 laps, but it's slower and takes longer to really come alive as like a tire that's able to be raced on. Shut up.
See, I don't think I realized there were different tread levels. I thought every F1 car just had flat. And, like, again, I'm so disconnected from this that I didn't even know they actually raced in the rain. I thought they would have just called the race at that point.
Yeah, so the 3, the soft, the medium, and the hard are all slick tires. There's no tread to them because it gives you the most grip. But they add tread to the wet weather tires in order to push the water out of the way, essentially.
Yeah. Just like a normal car.
Yeah.
And I think all of the racing components will race in the rain to some degree, but F1 probably pushes it further than anybody else.
Yeah. So F1 will race pretty much unless there's lightning, no matter what. It doesn't happen often. Like, usually it's only ever the intermediate tires, which are like, it's rained, the track's wet, but it's not really raining. And they can usually push those tires during a race to more wet conditions because the cars get so spread out that the racing line is dry enough because the cars are pushing the water out of the way.
Over and over on the same path. Like, because just real quick, that's a thing too, right? Is the exact path you treaded the first time is kind of where you would stay. That's why, like, when you look at a road and you see like that black line, it's kind of like that's where people normally would travel. It's especially true on the racetrack, right? Because you want to get the same, like, first of all, the trajectory you take has to be the most optimal, and then you like might draft somebody, or you know, that same path is just going to be the most dry at that point or whatever, right?
Yeah. And then especially in the rain, because it will be the most dry, but in the dry weather too, because when it is dry and your tires are hot, they come apart like as you're racing, and it effectively is rubbering in the track is what it's called. So if you run over that section again with warm tires, you stick to it better because there's now warm rubber on warm road with warm rubber running over, so everything just sticks a little bit better.
Right.
But it's important to know that you don't just have unlimited tires when you go, so you can't just go out there and race soft all the way to the end because it's the quickest tire. You only have a limited number of tires per weekend per team. I don't know the exact number, But
I'm sure they're expensive, so they have a budget for it at the very least.
Well, it's provided through a sponsor.
They can only come with a limited number of tires, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay.
So Pirelli is the only tire provider for F1. And so they get, I think it's like 2 hards, 3 mediums, and 6 softs to use all weekend.
In the event, I'm sure this is a rarity, but in the event they go through all their tires, if they just run out, is that just like a DNF?
I don't know. Like, you can put a set of tires on and run it, and then take it off, and it might still have life left in it, and you can put it back on if you really wanted to. It's not really the optimal thing to do because you've put it through a heat cycle, and so the stability of it is kind of like degraded, and the tire could puncture and stuff like that.
So additionally, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So when you remove tires in like the middle of a race, are they like no longer fit to be used at all? And in that case, I was gonna say, and in that case, would you like remanufacture a new tire with that rubber, or like what do you do with that tire? Because like that's a lot of tires.
It is a lot of tires. So like I said, Pirelli is the only tire provider for F1. They provide all the tires to all the teams, and nobody really knows what they do with the tires afterwards. Like, you're done with them, you give them over to them, they scrape them, they do some tests to see like the degradation and stuff like that, and then it just gets thrown in the back of the truck and crushed down and taken off.
Yeah, they shred them up and create those old track paths for outside your schoolyard back in the day. Right. That's what they do with them.
I'm sure they do something to repurpose them or reuse them if they can, because you're right, crazy. It is a lot of tires. Formula One is they're very gung-ho right now about being carbon net zero by 2030.
Right.
Which is insane.
That's a big movement.
Which is insane for a competition that races literally everywhere all over the world.
So with gasoline and rubber and
They actually have invented their own fuel that runs at a almost emission level of 0, essentially.
When are they just going to be honest and remind us that they do have a car that runs on water? If anyone's seen that 70s show, there was a running gag where like every time they'd be in the circle, Hyde would always bring up like, "Oh man, they have this. The government. They don't want you to know they have a car that runs on water, man."
Wait, is that kind of like you can make your car run on recycled French fry oil?
What?
Oh, you never heard that?
Mm-mm.
Like when all this movement first started, probably 10 years ago, there were like some, I don't want to call them survivalists, but like hardcore people. They put these conversion kits on their car, and their car they would convert recycled fry oil as fuel for their car.
Huh. I know you can like...
Now, I could just be talking out the side of my mouth, but I do seem to recall that.
I know like you can run a car off like vodka because it has enough like ethanol in it or something, or like moonshine or something like that.
Yeah.
Because there's enough ethanol in there.
So basically cars run on potatoes.
Pretty much.
Really. And vodka is really just a vegetable.
Truly.
Whiskey is ketchup.
I'm having a salad. Yeah.
Whiskey is technically ketchup because corn is a fruit.
Ooh.
Okay.
So qualifying sessions are everyone goes out on track at the same exact time. I mean, not the same exact time. Usually they're all out there on the same time though, because in the first session you only have 18 minutes to set the fastest lap you can, which doesn't seem too bad. But I mean, 5 people get eliminated, and then you go to Q2. Then you only have 15 minutes, and then 5 more people in Q3. You only have 12 minutes. So you really got to get out there and like get the tires warm, put down your lap, come in, if somebody beats your time, put on a new set of tires, go out there, warm it up, drive again.
Oh, you can do that?
Yeah, you can do as many laps as you need to. It's not just the one lap, that's where you're at.
How long's a typical track length?
So I have the longest and the shortest tracks. The longest track on the calendar right now is Spa in Belgium. It's like 7, almost 8 kilometers long, which I think is about 3.5, 4 miles. And then the shortest is Monaco, which I think is maybe 2 miles. I don't know the exact length of Monaco, but it's the shortest track.
That's crazy.
But Monaco is also slow because it is so tightly compacted and it's tight turns and stuff like that, whereas Spa is huge, so there's big, long sections where you can drive really, really fast. And so even though the distance difference is like 4 or 5 miles, the time difference is only like maybe 45 seconds in a lap time.
Yeah, depending on how many like straightaways and turns there are and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So once you're done qualifying, obviously you go to the race. But I think it's like 5 races this year, maybe 6. There are special weekends where there's a sprint race as well. So instead of all the practices, you get one practice, and then you qualify for the sprint race where the qualifying sessions are a little shorter than the normal. And then you do a sprint race, which is, I think it's 20% of what the normal race is that weekend. It's basically just an extra race, which is great for a lot of people.
But does that count like in your point standings and stuff for the year?
It does, but not as many people get points and not as many points are awarded because it is a shorter race. So whereas a normal race, you get 25 for first place and 1 for 10th place. Instead, you get 8 points for first place and 1 point for 8th place.
Got it.
So basically, it's just extra racing to get extra money. But
so can we go back and talk about the suck my balls guy?
Kevin Magnuson.
Interesting that you'd like to bring that back up.
Well, I mean, I don't want to leave it hanging out there. Let's kind of tidy up like what that, because I didn't know until Hayden told me, but I find it incredibly funny. And the guy is like dope as hell for.
It was an interview with a driver named Kevin Magnuson. And earlier in the race, there was an incident between him and another driver, Nico Hülkenberg. And during Kevin's interview, Hülkenberg came over and was like absolutely the worst class act of any driver I've ever seen. You know, like nonchalant, but also just being like an asshole towards him. And Kevin turned around and goes, "Yeah, suck my balls, mate." And just kept doing the interview. Like mid-interview, just suck my balls, mate.
So now his name is Kevin Suck My Balls Honey, whatever his last name is. Okay, great.
I've never actually heard him called that, but sure.
That's what it came up with. Right here it says, what does it say? When I did a little bit of Googling, it was like,
I believe American
you. Haas F1. Haas, like Stuart Haas?
Yep.
Oh, okay. And their drivers are just different teams. So Jean-Pierre, you know, I'm phonetically challenged, Jambalaya, who is French, and Kevin Suck My Balls Honey, whatever his last name is, who is Magnuson. Danish.
Yep.
Yeah. It was just saying like who was on what team, and I was like, why is he listed like that?
So I just want to be clear about the Haas racing. It's not Stuart Haas. It's just Haas.
It's just Haas.
It's just Gene Haas.
Gene Haas.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no Stuart with him in F1.
Yeah. But it is the same Haas, right?
It is the same Haas. It's interesting.
Okay.
So a great way to get into F1, if you really want to get into it, is watch the latest season of Drive to Survive on Netflix, which is basically just the documentary detailing all the big storylines. I saw that
the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot more dramatized. What is that word? Dramatized. Yeah.
Dramatized.
Like they really play up the story from what it really was. you know, but it's still a good way to like introduce yourself into Formula One in a more storytelling way, because that's what it really is all these stories that develop over the season. But it's funny, in there, the team principal, basically like the boss of Haas, after every race is like, oh, I have to go call Gene. I have to go call Gene. I have to go call Gene. And it's hilarious. Because I don't know if you know this, but Gene Haas actually is not legally allowed to leave the United States.
I do know that.
So he can't attend the F1 races or any race outside of the U.S.
What do you do?
Tax evasion or something, tax fraud, something like that.
Yeah, I think he had his passport revoked or something, or it's restricted, something like that. Something like that.
But finally,
what do we know?
I know it's slightly unrelated, but did you see the photo finish from the NASCAR race?
Yes, isn't
that crazy?
It was like the Cars finish where Lightning McQueen sticks his tongue out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was another one, living where I live, clearly. I mean, I'm practically across the street from the track. That was another one that finished on Monday because of weather.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a pretty good turnout for that one, unlike most Monday finishes.
Yeah. So we've practiced, we've qualified, we've done our sprint races. Sunday comes, it's now time to actually do the race. So every race starts the same. All the cars are lined up and they do what's called a formation lap, where they warm up their tires and get their car ready to race. And they line up in their boxes, and 5 lights come on in succession, letting the driver know we're about to do this finally. Yeah.
Boop. Beep.
You're right. Basically like Mario Kart does. And the lights go out, everybody goes racing. What's unique, I think, compared to NASCAR, especially about Formula One, is there's a hard 2-hour limit on the races. So say there's a red flag for 30 minutes, they've got to get the rest of that race done quickly, because races can take an hour 45 sometimes. But every race is required to go 300 kilometers. So at Spa, like we were saying, that's the longest
wait a minute.
track.
Regardless of the kind of delay they've had, they have to get 300 kilometers timed inside of 2 hours.
Pretty much. There are certain things that will allow them to extend the time. Like if there is a really bad accident, I think, and like the red flag happens for X amount of minutes or whatever, or if it's a weather delay, they will still race it. But
they just stop the clock, like for weather.
Right.
Whatever.
But generally, like if you're racing and there's like, say, a safety car or a caution to like related to NASCAR, where you have to follow the pace car around, and that takes 30 minutes or whatever. Like they take long doing that, or there's multiple ones of those. 2 hours go around. That's now the last lap, no matter where you're at.
What if they've not done 300 kilometers?
It's a 2-hour time limit.
Well, that's why I just ask you. So 2 hours pre-clips is the 300 kilometers.
Correct.
Okay. Whereas like NASCAR will let you just race for 4 days until you get your 200 laps in.
Pretty much.
So you can assume that like, oh, I've got time to make up my positioning, when in reality, like something like that can happen, and ultimately now you don't.
It almost never happens though, because I mean, they're really good about cleaning up the track after an incident and not being not racing for too long. You know what I mean? But their tracks, are they, how do I ask this question? So like how the tracks are in NASCAR, part of what is the what extends the period for a caution or whatever is they have to clean up fuel. It's not necessarily moving the car or debris or whatever. It's making sure that the fuel and the oil are clear from the track. Like, is it a different? So,
I mean, is there like, if they don't stop it, can they just go around it? I mean, is their track wider? How does that?
So
do you understand what I'm trying to ask? Because I sound like I'm just total ding dong right now.
So last year at Silverstone, Kevin Magnussen. Wow, we're relating everything back. Kevin Magnussen's engine stopped working, and it just started leaking oil all over the track. But he was quick enough to get off the racing line because it was on a straightaway, and he sat his car basically like halfway in the grass, but there was still oil and stuff. And so they put it under safety car, and it took him about a lap or two to get his car up onto the flatbed and then brush it all up. But they weren't too concerned about it because it wasn't the racing line. And later in the race, it actually did come into effect a little bit because one driver was trying to get past another driver in the draft.
Right.
And so he dipped down to the inside and ran through that like puddle that Magnussen had made.
Right.
And it sprayed up all over the other driver.
Yeah. Well, because like on a NASCAR track, you know how tight it is when they go 3 wide. That's tough. Yeah. And
it's almost never 3 wide.
Okay. And like where the apron line is that's what takes so long with clearing the track in NASCAR.
Yeah. You'll watch these cars race in a single file pretty much for 14 laps. And then one person will dive on the inside of another person and be like, oh my God, he's going to die. Like, it's insane.
Is it true, or is it just in video games where when you drive through the grass, you go slower?
You do go slower, yes.
You do go slower.
Because your tires don't grip it as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you just hit the reset button, though, and your car rebuilds and you take off again?
Not in real life.
Oh, okay.
How lame.
Yeah, I know, that sucks.
Right?
So, pit stops in Formula One.
Don't be pissed off.
It's better being pissed on.
Are some of the most insane things to watch. So every race you're required to use at least 2 different of those tire compounds that I mentioned before. So you can start the race on like a soft set, but at some point during the race you have to use either a medium or a hard. The only time you don't have to do that is when it's raining. Stop smiling. It's not funny. Grow up.
Sometimes you have to use the hard on. It's no big deal.
But so you have to come in for a stop at some point. And the cars, they're not allowed to refuel during the race. So you have to fuel up the entirety of your car.
What?
Yeah. They
go 300 kilometers with no refueling?
At 200 mile an hour, yes. 180 mile an hour.
Wow.
That's how efficient these cars are. But they have essentially 2 engines. They have the gasoline and an electrical unit that gives them extra horsepower.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they've developed their own fuel to be super efficient and that kind of stuff. But
hey, can we post the racings when we go live? Can we post the racing schedule, like in case somebody wants to watch a race?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I don't know. It's usually on one of the ESPN channels. I know that, but I pay for F1 TV that me and Josh split. So
of course you do. That's okay. I mean, we'll try to get a schedule that we can post in case somebody wants to watch a race.
Yeah. I think by the time this comes out, we will be 2 or 3 races into the season, but you probably would have missed much other than Max winning. But here's the thing about those pit stops is when you watch NASCAR, it's easy to just relate everything to NASCAR because we're in America. When you watch NASCAR, what's about the pit stop time, do you think, Mom, since you've...
Like 10 seconds, 10 to 12 seconds.
And that's changing 4 tires, putting gas in the car.
Yeah.
It takes, on average, an F1 team less than 3 seconds to change all 4 tires.
What?
How's that even physically possible?
The record was broken last year for the world's fastest pit stop by McLaren at 1.8 seconds.
That's insane. But they're not fueling because that's usually what takes, that's the max, what eats up the time NASCAR is fueling.
Right. And like in NASCAR, there's only 2 guys taking tires off, putting tires on, drilling them on, drilling them.
Yeah.
Putting them on, and then they run around the car and they do it on that side.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas there's one person in the front, one person in the back that lift the car off the ground, and there's 3 people for each tire. There's one person with the new tire, one person taking the old tire off, and one person with the gun. It's insane.
You can't have that many people in the pit in NASCAR.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can pull up the video for you on the pit stop.
That's probably something we should post too, is that video of them doing the record.
All right, let me share this with you. So this is Lando Norris. This is my favorite driver on my favorite team.
Bruh.
What?
That's it.
Okay, we're sharing this. We're going to share this on social.
Bold of them guys to just stand there while he's coming in like that, though.
Right? I mean, they trust these guys to stop on their mark so completely. Like, they stand there with their hands out, and the tire just ends up in their hand.
It, like, ends up in their hand. Yeah,
right.
That's wild, dude.
That's insane.
1.8. Look, these are the times from that race. The 10th fastest was 2.59 seconds.
Wow. Look at Rebel. I mean, just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, there's McLaren.
Yeah. 2 seconds.
Yeah, we'll share that on social media. That's insane.
Yeah. Those dudes train hard for that. And you wouldn't think, oh, you're just taking a tire off. I actually saw a comedian make a joke about Formula One pit stops. So I don't know if you noticed, there's a guy in the front who like catches the nose of the car and jacks it up.
Jacks it up.
So he was like, I timed it. They stop maybe twice a race, for 3 seconds. That's 6 seconds a race you have to work. Across all the season, that man gets paid like $400,000, $150,000, whatever it is, to do 3.5 minutes of work. Because he just...
I have a feeling there's some other things he does.
Yeah, but it's just funny.
That is funny, though, when you think about it. That is funny.
It's everyone's dream.
Yeah. But
yeah.
In the end, it matters who crosses the line first. And 9 times out of 10, that's a man named Max Verstappen who races for Red Bull Racing.
Of course he does.
He's won 4. What year is it? 3? He's won 3 championships in a row. I mean,
what is he, like the Patriots of racing?
Red Bull is, and he's kind of like the Tom Brady, except he's actually likable. So
he doesn't deflate his balls. I mean, suck balls. I mean, what?
Jesus. But
sorry.
That's Formula One racing in a very poorly explained manner, I'm sure.
I learned a lot. I want to watch a race now.
That was entertaining. Actually.
That was
look, I came in with no expectations, no nothing, and I had a good time.
My goal was to either get you to want to watch a race, or at least, if I mentioned Drive to Survive, want to go watch that.
Well, I like racing, so yeah, this makes me want to watch a race. So we will we will put a link to the drone that they talked about earlier that follows the cars on the track, and then we will post the video that shows the 1.8 second pit stop, which was amazing.
Then we'll also get a schedule up for anybody who's interested in watching a race after this.
Okay, wait, before we speed out of here, we have to do Monkey Mischief today.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. So if you swung by social media Monday of this week, you saw we had posted, I just invented the first thought-controlled air freshener. It makes sense when you think about it. I love a good dad joke.
It does make sense when you think about it. Just
it
not
does
the
make
kind of
sense.
you're thinking.
Sense with a T. And so again, if you want to participate in the Monkey Monday Mischief, Monkey, whatever order you feel you want to put them in, you can always drop us a comment. You can instant message us through our social media, or you can go to monkeysunfiltered.com and submit your joke. If we select your joke to be used, we will send you, what guys? A Monkey's Unfiltered sticker.
All right. Well, that was a good joke. I'm not going to lie. I might use that one day. Well, thanks for letting me rant on about Formula One, guys.
Thanks for having knowledge of a simple subject that you can actually discuss. I know a lot about, I know a little bit about a lot of things. Never enough that I can like actually sit down and explain it to someone.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks for listening along with us, guys. Remember, we're going to be posting the 2 videos and then the schedule for you on our socials. If you're not already over there following us, it's at Monkeys Unfiltered on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, X, whatever it's called. And
They're having an identity crisis.
Right. We will see you all next week. Same time, same place. See you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for sticking around for today's episode of Monkeys Unfiltered. If you like what you heard and you want to make sure you never miss Laugh with the Gang, be sure you are hitting that subscribe button wherever you get your podcast.
Also, I've realized that all 3 of us are mouth breathers.
Truly. I have a disorder. I can't help it. So
no, that's fine. But like, especially the 6 degrees when one person's talking, the other you're just in the fucking background.
So we should call this the obscene caller.